Hello everyone. Welcome to the CSU 2020 Fall Kickoff. So I volunteered to talk about this device that I use in my online classes, and I hope you will find it helpful. So let me find this. Here we go. So this is about using a documents camera. If you think about all the different kinds of delivery options you have for getting content to your students online, there's not very many. The simplest way is to recite a lecture with a webcam. This is the easiest and simplest and most boring way to deliver your material to students. We all can remember, even back before technology, of people who would just read out their lectures. My favorite story is a guy I had who would read his lectures from 5x8 note cards that he kept bound with a rubber band, and they were all gray and yellow and worn on the edges, where he had been reading those lecture notes probably since the dawn of time. Anyway, so that's not a good way to do it. Another way to do it, and I'm a little conflicted about this, is voice over PowerPoint. So all of our disciplines are different, but for me and the other disciplines that are kind of visual and require give and take in class, and maybe students solve problems and stuff like that, voice over PowerPoint doesn't work very well because the class has a tendency to drift off in one area or another, but with PowerPoint you're kind of locked into whatever the PowerPoint says you have to do. It is a little better if you create your own PowerPoint slides, and at least I think it's better when you do that, because then you can talk about the material that you truly want to talk about. But the problem is that to do it very well, it takes a long time. For me to generate even 15 minutes of voice over PowerPoint, it would take me an entire day to do it in a way that I thought was really good. Of course, there's the PowerPoint that you get from your publisher, and maybe in some disciplines that works pretty good, but at least in mine, I don't think it does, because those PowerPoints, while they're quite polished, are almost always focused on the kind of minutia of my subject. I teach econ, and you'll see a bunch of PowerPoint slides about how many board of governors there are and who appoints them and what the tools of the Federal Reserve are, stuff like that they can easily get out of the book. So for me, what I'm trying to do is get them to understand what's really going on in all the models, and that's not done well in PowerPoint. But if you do it over voice over PowerPoint, it looks something like this, and you can see that it would be take quite a while to generate all this. This is one I did for a class I did this summer, and I don't think my students appreciated how much work it was for me to do this. They just kind of blew it off, but for me, it took really a whole day. You don't really need to see another example, but because it took me a long time to do them, I'm going to show you another one, even though my students didn't care, and probably you don't either. But we can all appreciate that to generate the kind of voice over PowerPoint you really need to be effective is quite time consuming. Now, the third thing you can do is smartboard with voiceover, and I think this is a good way to do it, but it's unbelievably expensive. And these boards are huge, so you can't really carry them into a classroom and carry it back to your office. Pretty much has to be set up in every classroom, and if it goes any way like other kinds of technology that's set up in classrooms, they'll go down from time to time, and somebody in the classroom ahead of you will set some setting different from what you're used to, and you get in there and the thing won't work. So while in theory those are a really great way to do it, I don't think they work out very well. I'm a big fan of these little documents cameras. These document cameras cost less than $100, and they're sharp enough, they have enough resolution that students can see in quite detail what you throw down in front of them. So this is kind of what they look like. This is one that's I found on Amazon. It's about $90. The one I have is about 10 years old. It doesn't look quite like this. This one that I found on the internet has this kind of base underneath that stabilizes it. Mine has kind of a lead weight under there. This thing is articulated in 3 places, mine's articulated in 2, and so forth. But it's the same basic idea. This little tiny camera here that doesn't look very impressive actually can see very small type way smaller than what you might find in a newspaper, and I'll show you some examples in a minute. So let's get this PowerPoint out of here, and let me see if I can get this thing to come up. Where'd it go? Here it is over here. Okay, so this is my documents camera, just showing a clipboard that I have here, and I just generated some text with some felt tip pens, which now I've lost. Here we go. So instead of having a set of dry markers, you just have a set of felt tip pens, and you can just draw on here as small as you want, and this camera can easily see it. The beauty of this is if you work out a big long problem, so let's say that you spent 10 minutes working some problem here, and now it's time to go on to something else, you can pull that paper off like you would erase the whiteboard in class. You pull that paper off and start a new problem underneath. And then later in the class, some student might say, oh hey, can we go back to that other problem? In a truly face-to-face class, you're stuck because you've already erased that. But when you use this documents camera, you can easily pull the old problem back and go back to it, which I've done many times. Another thing that's nice about these documents camera is they don't have to look at a piece of paper. You can show them a calculator. So in my class, I teach statistics, and students are always asking me, how do you do a factorial? How do you do a combination or a permutation? Or how did you do one thing or another? And you can show them. You can show them with your calculator. Other things that you can do that I'm sure you'll find a way to use these is oftentimes bring things into class. In my discipline, we have this term called creative destruction. The markets are dynamic and new things are invented all the time, and these inventions seem like great to the people who benefit from them, but somebody certainly loses out. So for example, I found these in an old record player and I saved them. I bet there's not two people who's watching this video who knows what these are. You'd have to be quite old to know. But these are vacuum tubes, which we used before there were transistors, which we used before there were integrated circuits, which is what we have now. So there was some company that made these things, and they probably followed best practices in the 1940s or 1950s whenever these things were made. And no matter how smart their management group was, technology caused that company to fail. There are a lot of great examples like that you can bring into class, and in your discipline maybe it be something else. But this camera can see objects. It can also see a tablet. I've never really done this in class, but you can throw a tablet down in front of it, and it can see. Let's see what I can find in here. I thought I had a newspaper somewhere. Yeah, here's a newspaper article from today. Come on, there you are. Come on, light up. Well, it's a little dark in here where I'm showing this to you, but it can see a tablet, and if my lighting was a little better, you'd be able to see. Come on, fix that thing. Oh well, never mind. It worked better earlier. So you can bring in newspaper articles, physical articles, or whatever you want. So that's how it works. And I think it's easily foldable. You can put it in your book bag or in your attaché case or whatever. You can carry it into class. It just plugs into a USB port on your laptop. The university is asking us to record all of our classes. You can easily record this, and your students can play it back later. So it works great for me, and I think it will work great for any of you who have sort of a visual orientation in your lectures. So I don't want to insult anybody, but as I think about it, that would be everybody in the math department, probably in the sciences, econ. I don't know. Others maybe you would have a use for this too. But again, it's way cheaper than a smart board. You can carry it around. They seem pretty robust, and I don't have any trouble with it. All right, everyone. I hope you found that useful. Bye-bye.